Abandoned on the battlefield was covered in smoke and dust. Broken machines lay scattered like dead insects. The ground was cracked and blackened from heavy fire. Here and there, the bodies of soldiers, human and alien, lay, still, forgotten by the world that sent them to fight. In the center of the wreckage, a figure struggled to breathe. An alien warrior, once proud and feared, now lay paralyzed on the cold ground. Her armor was cracked and scorched. Her weapon was missing. Her legs would not move no matter how much she tried. Pain shot through her body like fire, but she refused to cry out. She would not show weakness. Not even now. Around her, the sounds of retreat filled the air. The alien forces, seeing their defeat, were falling back. One by one, they turned away from her. They had no time for the broken, no mercy for the weak. She watched as her own commander, the one she had bled for, spared her not even a glance. He simply walked past, shouting orders to the others. "Leave her," someone said. "She is finished." Their voices stabbed deeper than any weapon. The warrior, whose name was Arya, closed her eyes. Maybe it was better this way, better to be forgotten, better to be left behind than dragged away like a trophy. The humans advanced cautiously, sweeping the battlefield. Most were focused on the last pockets of resistance. None of them noticed her lying there, half hidden by debris. None, except one. Single human soldier broke from his group. His armor was battered, marked by many fights. He moved differently from the others. Not like a hunter, but like a man searching for something. His name was Daniel. Daniel moved slowly through the wreckage, his rifle lowered. His eyes scanned the ground carefully. He had seen too much death already. He was tired of killing. Then he saw her. At first, he thought she was dead. But as he got closer, he saw the slight rise and fall of her chest. Her fingers twitched weakly. Against the dirt, she was alive. Daniel hesitated. Orders were clear. Leave the wounded aliens. Secure the area. Move on. But something inside him, something he could not explain, made him stay. He crouched beside her, ignoring the warning shouts from his squad in the distance. Arya opened her eyes and looked at him. Their eyes locked. For a moment, there was no war, no sides, no hatred. Only two broken souls, lost in the ruins. Daniel saw the fear flicker behind her strong gaze. Not fear of death. She had already accepted that. Fear of being nothing. Fear of being left behind. He spoke gently, knowing she probably could not understand his words. "You are not nothing," he said. She blinked slowly, as if she could hear his heart, if not his voice. Daniel made his decision. He slung his rifle across his back and carefully reached for her. Arya stiffened, expecting pain. But the pain did not come. Instead, she felt strong arms lifting her from the dirt. For a moment, the world spun. The weight of shame, of failure, crushed her chest. But Daniel held her carefully, not like a prisoner, not like a burden, like a person. In the distance, his squad shouted again. "Leave her, Daniel. She's not worth it." He ignored them. He could not explain why. Maybe because he was tired of leaving people behind. Maybe because he knew what it felt like to be forgotten. He adjusted her weight against him and started walking. Each step was a battle. Arya was heavy, even without her armor. His injuries screamed at him to stop. His mind warned him of the danger, but he kept going. One step at a time. Behind him, angry voices grew louder. Other humans. Other aliens. Both sides disgusted by his choice. Daniel did not care. He had already made his choice. He would not leave her. Arya, barely conscious, felt the world sway with every step he took. Part of her wanted to struggle, to break free. Pride told her she should die on her own terms, but a deeper, quieter part of her, a part long buried, whispered something else. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, not all enemies were monsters. Maybe, just maybe, Not all battles were fought with weapons. The smoke thickened around them, the battlefield blurred behind them, and somewhere in the distance, something dark and deadly began to move. They were not safe yet. The real danger was still coming. But for the first time in a long time, Arya was not alone. And for Daniel, carrying her was not a burden. It was a promise. The choice to stand alone. The air grew colder as Daniel carried Arya through the ruins. Behind him, voices grew louder, sharper. The other human soldiers were arguing. Some called him a fool. Others ordered him to stop. None of them understood why he would risk everything for an alien, an enemy. Daniel did not stop. His legs burned from the effort. The weight of Arya and his gear pressed down like stones. Every step was harder than the last. But when he looked down at her face, he saw something that made him keep going. Trust. Even in her broken state, Arya was trusting him, and Daniel could not betray that. He moved through the shattered streets of the abandoned town, searching for shelter. Fires burned here and there, casting twisted shadows. The ground was littered with broken weapons, torn banners, and forgotten dreams. They had entered a place where the war had already passed, leaving only silence and ashes behind. Daniel found a half-collapsed building and pushed inside. The roof sagged dangerously, but it would hide them for now. Carefully he lowered Arya onto a pile of old blankets he had found. She winced but made no sound. Daniel knelt beside her, breathing hard. "You are safe for now," he said quietly, though he knew she might not understand. Still, she blinked once, slowly as if answering. Outside, the shouting grew louder. They had noticed he was missing. Soon they would come looking. Daniel looked around. The ruined building. Broken furniture, cracked walls, holes in the ceiling. No real defenses, no real safety. If they found him, they would take Arya. Maybe worse. He checked his gear. One rifle, almost out of charge. One knife. Dull. No grenades. No medkit. He was alone. And yet somehow he felt stronger than he had in a long time. He moved back to Arya and gently checked her wounds. Burns, deep cuts, broken bones. But she was alive, fighting. Even now her hand twitched, as if reaching for a weapon she no longer had. "You are a fighter," Daniel whispered. "I can see it." Arya's breathing was rough but steady. Her eyes flickered open again, focusing on him. She did not beg. She did not cry. She simply watched him, waiting to see if he would betray her too. Daniel shook his head. "I will not leave you," he promised. A small sound echoed outside. Boots. On stone. They were coming. Daniel moved quickly, dragging a broken table across the doorway, setting up a rough barricade. It would not stop a real assault, but it might buy them a few precious minutes. He crouched behind the table, rifle ready. The footsteps grew closer. He could hear them talking. He's gone mad. Risking his life for a thing like that? Orders are orders. We bring them both back, or we kill them if they resist. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. He looked back at Arya. She watched him with silent eyes. No fear now, only acceptance. She was ready to die, if needed, but Daniel was not ready to let her. Not yet. The first soldier appeared in the doorway, rifle raised. Daniel fired first. The shot hit the wall beside the soldier. A warning. "Stop," Daniel shouted. "I won't let you take her." The soldier ducked back, swearing. Another voice called out from behind the wall. "Daniel, don't be stupid. She's an enemy. She's nothing." Daniel's hands tightened on his rifle. "She's not nothing," he said. "She's alive, that's enough." A pause, then laughter. Cold and mocking. "Then you're dead too." Daniel heard the click of weapons being readied. He looked down at Arya one last time. "Hold on," he whispered. He fired again, forcing the soldiers back. Then he grabbed Arya, lifting her once more into his arms. No time for careful steps now. They had to run. Bullets tore through the walls as he sprinted toward the back of the building. A narrow alley opened into darkness. Daniel ran, his breath ragged, his muscles screaming. Behind him, shouts and gunfire echoed like thunder. He ducked into another building, then another, weaving through the ruins like a ghost. He did not stop. He would not stop, even as blood ran down his arm from a grazing shot. Even as exhaustion pulled at his bones, he kept moving, because somewhere deep inside him he knew saving her was the only thing that mattered now. They burst out of the ruins into open desert. The sky above was dark, the stars cold and silent. No cover, no hiding, just endless sand and death. Daniel staggered but kept moving, every step a prayer, every breath a battle. Behind him, the soldiers hesitated at the edge of the ruins. They would not chase him into the wastelands. Not yet. But they would be back, stronger, angrier. Daniel collapsed behind a dune, shielding Arya with his body. He listened to the night. Only the wind answered. They had escaped. For now. He looked down at Arya. Her hand moved weakly, brushing his arm. Gratitude. Daniel smiled, tired but fierce. "You're not alone anymore," he said softly. "I'll stand with you." Above them, the first light of dawn touched the sky, painting the desert in shades of gold and red. A new day had begun, and with it, a new war. But they would face it together. Alone, but not broken. Stronger than before. Hunted and trapped, the desert was endless. A sea of golden death under a pitiless sun. Daniel stumbled through the sand, carrying Arya close to his chest. Every step was a battle. Every breath was fire in his lungs. Arya was unconscious now. Her body burned with fever. The wounds she carried were deep, and without help she would not survive long. But Daniel refused to give up. He tightened his grip on her and kept walking. Behind them, somewhere beyond the dunes, danger followed. The soldiers had not stopped the hunt. They had sent something worse after him now. Hunter drones, machines built for one purpose, to find and capture runaway enemies, and they never gave up. Daniel had seen them once before on another battlefield. He had watched them tear through an entire village like wolves among sheep. He would not let that happen again. He moved carefully, choosing his path through low valleys between the dunes, staying out of sight as much as possible. The sun dropped lower, and the shadows grew longer. A strange silence fell over the desert, heavy and unnatural. Then he heard it, the distant, mechanical hum of the hunter drones. Daniel's heart pounded harder. He had maybe minutes before they found him. He scanned the horizon desperately. There, a dark line on the edge of the sands. A rocky outcrop half buried in the dunes. Shelter. If he could reach it, maybe he could hide long enough for the drones to pass. He shifted Arya's weight and pushed his legs to move faster. The drones came into view behind him, small, black, shapes against the burning sky. They skimmed the sand like sharks hunting blood. One of them spotted him. A sharp whistle cut through the air. Then the chase began. Daniel ran, every muscle screaming in protest. He did not look back. He could hear the whine of engines getting closer. He stumbled over a rock, nearly falling, but he kept going. The outcrop was closer now, almost there. A flash of light burst past him, a warning shot. The drones were armed. He swerved left, feeling the heat of another shot graze his side. He didn't stop. He couldn't stop. Arya's life depended on it. At last he reached the rocks. He ducked into a narrow crevice just as another shot slammed into the stone above his head, showering him with dust. Inside the rocks, the world was cooler, darker. He found a small, hollow space and gently laid Arya down. She moaned weakly, her eyelids fluttering. Daniel brushed her hair back from her forehead. "Stay with me," he whispered. Outside, the drones buzzed like angry wasps, searching. Daniel drew his knife. His rifle was useless now. No ammo left. He was down to a blade and his fists. He crouched low, heart hammering, every sense straining. The first drone floated past the entrance. Its sensors scanned the rocks, searching for heat, for movement. Daniel pressed himself against the cold stone, willing himself to be invisible. The drone hesitated, then moved on. Daniel let out a slow breath, but he knew it was only a matter of time. He looked back at Arya. She needed medical care. Soon. Or all of this would be for nothing. He had to move. He had to find a way to escape. Slowly, carefully, he picked up a handful of small stones. He waited, listening to the pattern of the drone's movement. Then he threw a stone far into the darkness of the rocks. It clattered loudly. The drone spun, sensors flashing, and zoomed toward the sound. Daniel didn't waste a second. He lifted Arya and slipped out the other side of the rocks, staying low, moving fast. He could see a faint shimmer in the distance. A mirage maybe, or maybe salvation. Small broken shelter half buried in the sand. He headed toward it. The ground was rough here, full of jagged stones that cut into his boots. But he didn't stop. He heard the drone realize the trick. It spun back, its engine screaming. It fired. Again, sand exploded around him. One shot grazed his arm, burning through the fabric and skin. He stumbled but didn't fall. The shelter was close now. 20 steps. 15. 10. He dived into the broken structure just as another blast shattered the entrance behind him. Inside, it was dark and cramped. Metal walls rusted and cracked. An old bunker, left from some forgotten war. He set Arya down carefully and turned to block the entrance with a heavy piece of metal. He was trapped. But for now, they were hidden. Outside, the drone hovered, scanning, searching. Inside, Daniel checked Arya's wounds. They were worse now. Infection was setting in. Her breathing was shallow. "Hold on," he whispered. "Please, just hold on." He had saved her once. He would save her again, even if it cost him everything. The drone floated closer. Its sensors scanned the bunker. Daniel tightened his grip on the knife. He was ready. If they came, for her they would have to go through him first. He was not leaving her. Not ever. Above them, the desert stars blinked cold and indifferent. And somewhere, deep in the darkness, something worse than the drones stirred, something that had been waiting for them all along. The hidden strength inside the broken bunker. The air was thick with dust and old memories. Daniel sat against the rusted wall, his knife ready in one hand, his other hand resting lightly on Arya's forehead. Her skin was burning hot. Her breathing was shallow and fast. The infection was getting worse. Every second counted. But outside, the drone still waited, its soft mechanical hum filling the air like the song of death. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. He needed a plan. He needed a miracle. But all he had was an almost dead alien warrior in his arms, a dull knife and a heart too stubborn to give up. He shifted, trying to make Arya more comfortable. Her lips moved slightly. A word. So soft he almost missed it. "Help," she whispered. Daniel felt a stab of pain deep in his chest. "I'm here," he said. "I won't leave you." As he spoke, something strange happened. A soft blue glow began to shimmer around Arya's body. Daniel pulled back, startled. The glow grew stronger, wrapping her like a thin mist. Then suddenly, Daniel felt a pressure inside his mind. A gentle push, like a hand reaching out. He gasped. Images filled his head fast and sharp. A battlefield, a royal court, a tall woman crowned with light, a young Arya kneeling before her. Thoughts, feelings, memories not his own. Somehow Arya was speaking. To him, through the mind. Through something older and deeper than words. He saw her as she truly was. Not just a warrior, but something far more rare. A guardian. One of the ancient protectors of her people. Chosen, trained, and given gifts that most could not even dream of. But those powers had been locked inside her when she was paralyzed, hidden to protect her. Until now. Daniel staggered, holding his head. "What are you trying to show me?" he whispered. In answer, a clear image filled his mind. A hidden device deep inside the bunker, buried under the sand and metal. Ancient alien tech. A healing pod. Old, broken, but maybe it could still work. Hope flared in his chest. Daniel stood quickly, searching the walls and floor. The bunker groaned around him, the metal weak from years of storms and battles. The drone outside buzzed closer, scanning, hunting. Daniel ignored it. He tore through the rubble with his bare hands, scraping his skin bloody. He had to find it. He had to save her. Stone and metal clattered around him. He coughed on the dust but kept digging. Then his fingers brushed something smooth and cold. He yanked it free. A small black box covered in strange symbols. It vibrated faintly in his hand. He carried it back to Arya and placed it beside her. The blue glow around her body pulsed, brighter now, as if recognizing the device. He watched in awe as tiny lights flickered across the box. It opened slowly, unfolding like a flower. Inside was a small pool of liquid silver. Arya's hand twitched toward it, her fingers trembling. Daniel helped her, gently lowering her hand into the liquid. The moment her skin touched it, the silver flowed up her arm, covering her wounds, sealing her broken flesh. Her breathing steadied. The fever began to fade. Her eyes opened wide, clear, strong. Daniel smiled, relief flooding him. "You're coming back," he whispered. But the moment of peace did not last. Outside, the drone locked onto their position. With a high-pitched whine, it fired. The bunker shook violently. Chunks of metal and stone crashed down around them. Daniel shielded, Arya with his body gritting his teeth against the pain. "Not now," he growled. "Not when we're this close." Arya sat up slowly, the blue glow still dancing across her skin. She touched Daniel's arm lightly, and suddenly, he felt a surge of strength flow into him. Not just physical strength. Courage, willpower, hope. It filled him like fire. He met her eyes. They were no longer weak. They burned with the light of something unstoppable. Outside, the drone prepared for another shot. This time, Arya moved first. She raised her hand, and the blue light gathered around her fingers. With a silent roar, she released it. A blast of pure energy shot through the broken wall, striking the drone. The machine screamed as it exploded in midair, showering the desert with burning fragments. Silence. Felt a real silence. Daniel stared at her, stunned. "You," he began. Arya gave a small, tired smile. "You saved me first," she whispered. "Now it's my turn." Daniel laughed, a short, amazed sound. He sat back, breathing hard, as the dust settled around them. They had survived, again. But he knew this was just the beginning. The hunters would come, in greater numbers now. They had seen the power Arya carried. They would not let her go easily. Daniel looked at the horizon, where dark shapes were already gathering. He stood, helping Arya to her feet. She was weak but standing. Together, they would face whatever came next. And this time, they had more than hope. They had hidden strength. They had each other. And they had a promise: never surrender, never leave each other behind. Not ever again. The enemy closes in the desert wind howled across the broken bunker, carrying with it the smell of burning metal and something darker, the scent of war. Daniel tightened the straps of his torn gear, feeling the weight of exhaustion pulling at him. Arya stood beside him, leaning slightly on the cracked wall, the faint blue glow still clinging to her skin like a whisper of power. They both knew the truth. The blast that destroyed the drone had not gone unnoticed. Someone, somewhere, had seen it. Someone had sent word, and now the real hunters were coming. Daniel scanned the horizon with tired eyes. Small, black shapes moved steadily toward them, like ants across the golden sands. They were organized, they were fast, and they were angry. He counted at least a dozen armored vehicles crawling over the dunes. Each one bristled with weapons designed for one thing: capture or kill. And somewhere among them, Daniel knew, would be a commander. Someone who would not underestimate Arya again. Someone who would crush them without mercy. He turned to Arya. "We have to move," he said quietly. Arya nodded, her face pale but determined. She knew too. This was not a fight they could win by standing still. They slipped out of the broken bunker, moving carefully across the rocky ground. Arya's steps were slow but steady. The healing pod had repaired much of her body, but true strength would take time to return. Time they did not have. As they moved, Daniel searched for anything, a cave, a ridge, a canyon, anything they could use for cover. He spotted a narrow valley ahead, hidden between sharp cliffs. If they could reach it, they might be able to disappear again. There, he pointed. Arya nodded again, saving her strength. They moved faster, the sun baking their backs. Behind them, engines roared louder. The hunters were close, too close. Then a shot rang out, kicking up sand near Daniel's feet. They were within range. "Run!" Daniel shouted. They sprinted for the valley, their shadows stretching long across the desert floor. More shots followed, missing by inches. Arya stumbled once, falling to one knee. Daniel grabbed her arm, pulling her up without stopping. They could see the mouth of the valley now, a jagged crack in the earth, almost there, almost safe. Another shot grazed Daniel's side, tearing through his jacket. Pain flared, but he ignored it. He would not fall now. They reached the valley entrance just as the first hunter vehicle skidded into sight behind them. The ground shook with the force of it. Daniel pulled Arya into the shadows of the rocks. They ducked behind a boulder as the first soldiers dismounted. Daniel peeked around the stone. They were not just soldiers. They were enforcers. Elite units trained to hunt, capture, and destroy. And they carried net guns, electric, batons, and worse, suppressor fields that could shut down alien powers. They were not here to talk. They were here to end it. Arya leaned heavily against the rock, her breath ragged. Her eyes met Daniel's. No fear there, only understanding. If they were captured, there would be no mercy. No second chances. Daniel checked his knife. It was a poor weapon against soldiers in full armor, but he would not surrender. Not ever. Arya touched his hand lightly. For a moment, through the touch, he felt her strength again. Not as a power to destroy, but as a shield, as a bond. They would fight together. They would fall together if they had to. The soldiers moved into the valley, methodical and confident. They swept the area with scanners. They knew their prey was trapped. Daniel tightened his grip on the knife. "On my signal," he whispered. Arya nodded, her hand glowing faintly again. They waited, breathless. The first soldier stepped too close. Daniel moved. He burst from cover, slamming into the soldier with everything he had. They crashed to the ground. The soldier's gun fired wildly, missing. Arya followed, her hands flaring with blue light. She struck another soldier, the blast knocking him off his feet. The valley exploded into chaos. Daniel fought with savage speed, slashing, dodging, striking. Arya moved like a flame, fast and fierce, but there were too many. For every soldier they dropped, two more closed in. Daniel took a blow to the side, falling hard. Arya screamed, a raw, broken sound. She unleashed a surge of energy, sending a shockwave through the valley. Soldiers flew back, weapons shattering, but the suppressor field activated. A dull hum filled the air. Arya staggered, the blue light around her flickering. They had trapped her powers. A net shot out, wrapping around her legs. She fell. Daniel crawled to her, slashing at the net with his knife. But another soldier struck him across the back, sending him sprawling. Arya reached out for him, her fingers inches from his. The commander stepped forward, his armor black and shining. He looked down at Daniel with contempt. "You should have left her to die," he sneered. Daniel looked up, blood dripping from his mouth. "Never," he whispered. The commander raised his weapon. "Then you die with her." He pulled the trigger, and the world exploded into light. Awakening the sleeping power, the shot never reached him. At the last possible second, a wall of blue light exploded between Daniel and the commander. The energy roared like a living storm, sending soldiers flying backwards, their weapons ripped from their hands. The suppressor field cracked and shattered under the force of it. Dust and broken stone filled the valley. Daniel lay still for a moment, stunned by the blast. Then he opened his eyes slowly, and what he saw took his breath away. Arya was standing. The broken nets hung from her like torn spider webs. Her body, once weak and trembling, now stood tall and strong. The blue light around her was no longer a flicker. It was a burning flame that wrapped her whole body in a living shield. Her silver eyes glowed with an ancient fury, a power older than the stars themselves. For a moment, even the commander hesitated. He had seen many battles. He had broken many enemies, but he had never seen anything like this. Arya took a step forward. The ground trembled under her feet. The air shimmered around her. The soldiers raised their weapons again, fear flashing in their eyes. The commander shouted an order, but it was too late. Arya moved like lightning. She raised one hand, and the earth answered. Stone and sand rose into the air, forming a swirling barrier between her and the soldiers. Bullets and energy blasts bounced harmlessly off the shield. Daniel watched, awe and hope filling his heart. The girl they had left to die was no longer a broken warrior. She was a force of nature. Arya pointed at the nearest group of soldiers. The shield shot forward, slamming into them like a giant fist. They flew backward, crashing into the canyon walls with a sickening crack. The commander roared in rage and charged at her, a heavy energy blade crackling in his hands. Arya did not move. She waited. Calm. Ready. The commander swung the blade with all his strength. At the last moment, Arya raised her arm. The blade struck her shield and shattered into 1,000 sparks. The force of it pushed her back slightly, but she held her ground. With a soft, deadly whisper, Arya thrust her hand forward. A wave of pure energy blasted the commander off his feet. He hit the ground hard, his armor dented and smoking. Daniel struggled to his knees. He saw soldiers scrambling to retreat, terror written across their faces. They had come to capture a broken thing. Instead, they had awakened a queen. Arya turned to him, her face softening. She reached out her hand, without hesitation. Daniel took it. The moment their fingers touched, he felt a surge of warmth and strength flow into him. His wounds eased slightly. His pain faded. He stood beside her, feeling as if he could take on the whole galaxy. We end this together, Arya said, her voice strong and clear. Daniel nodded. The remaining soldiers regrouped at the edge of the valley, forming a last desperate line. They raised heavy weapons, bigger, stronger, but Arya was faster. She stepped forward, lifting both hands. The ground shook violently. Cracks split the earth, opening under the soldiers' feet. They cried out, scrambling for safety. Some ran, some fell. None could stand against her. The commander dragged himself to his feet, rage twisting his face. He pulled a small device from his belt, a beacon, a call for reinforcements. Arya saw it. With a flick of her fingers, the beacon turned red hot and melted into slag. The commander stared at her, horror filling his eyes. What are you? He gasped. Arya's answer was simple. Free. With a final push, she sent a wave of energy racing across the ground. It struck the commander and his men, lifting them into the air and hurling them far across the desert. When the dust cleared, the valley was silent again. Arya lowered her hands, slowly. The blue light faded, leaving only a faint shimmer in the air. She stumbled slightly. Daniel caught her before she fell. You did it, he said, smiling. Arya leaned against him, breathing hard but smiling back. We did it, she corrected. They stood there together, surrounded by the wreckage of the battle. But they both knew it was not over yet. The galaxy was wide and full of enemies, and word of what had happened here would spread fast. Others would come. Stronger. Smarter. But Arya was ready now, and she was not alone. Daniel squeezed her hand gently. What now? He asked. Arya looked up at the endless sky, stars beginning to shine once more. Now, she said softly, we fight for others who are still chained. She looked at Daniel, her eyes fierce and bright. We become the storm they fear. Together, they turned away from the ruined valley and walked into the night. Stronger, free, unbreakable. But in the distance, across the cold stars, New dangers were already waking, and their true battle was just beginning. Her first steps again. The first light of dawn spilled across the desert, cold and golden. The battlefield behind them was silent now. Broken drones lay scattered like fallen crows. The sand was scorched and blackened from the fight. The air smelled of burnt metal and victory. But the real war was not over yet. Daniel helped Arya walk slowly across the sand, one arm wrapped around her waist. She was still weak, her body fighting against the exhaustion and pain. Every step looked like it might be her last, but she refused to fall. She refused to give up. The enemy had been forced to retreat, but Daniel knew it was only a matter of time before they returned, stronger, angrier, and with weapons built to destroy even the power inside Arya. They needed to get far away from this place. Fast. They reached the top of a low hill, the morning, wind whipping around them. From there they could see the full scale of what they had survived. A dark scar stretched across the desert, the path of the destroyed hunter forces, but far in the distance, just beyond the horizon, black dots moved slowly toward them. Reinforcements. A fresh army. And this time, they would not underestimate them. Daniel tightened his grip on Arya. "We have to keep moving," he said, his voice rough from smoke and dust. Arya nodded, breathing hard. "I can walk," she whispered. Daniel wasn't sure she could, but he let her try. He stepped back slowly, ready to catch her if she fell. Arya swayed, on trembling legs. The blue glow that had once wrapped her like armor was faint now, almost gone. She was no longer a storm, no longer a weapon, just a girl with broken muscles and bleeding feet. Daniel's heart ached to see her like this. But he said nothing. He knew this was her battle too. One step. Arya moved her foot forward. The sand shifted under her, soft and treacherous. Her legs buckled slightly. She gritted her teeth. Another step. The pain shot up her spine like fire. Memories flooded her mind. The chains, the betrayal, the battlefield where she had been left to die. For a terrifying moment, she wanted to fall, to let it end, to give up. But then she saw Daniel's face. Not pity, not fear, only belief. Pure, stubborn belief. She took another step, then another. Slowly, painfully, she began to walk down the hill on her own. Daniel followed close behind, a silent guardian. He knew what this meant. Every step was not just a movement, it was a victory, a rejection of the past, a promise for the future. They crossed the dunes together, leaving the battlefield behind, but the enemy was getting closer. The rumble of their machines grew louder every minute. Daniel knew they could not outrun them forever. They needed a plan, and they needed it now. As they reached a dry riverbed, Arya stumbled to a stop. Her face was pale, her breath sharp and shallow. "There's something here," she said. Daniel frowned. He looked around, nothing but dry stones and cracked earth. "What do you mean?" he asked. Arya knelt, pressing her palm against the ground. The blue light sparked faintly at her touch. The earth under her hand began to hum. Then, slowly, ancient lines of symbols appeared across the riverbed, glowing soft silver. It was not just a river. It was a forgotten gate, a hidden doorway, a path to safety, or perhaps to something worse. Daniel crouched beside her. "Can you open it?" he asked. Arya shook her head weakly. "Not alone," she said. "I need you." Daniel did not hesitate. He placed his hand beside hers on the earth. The light grew stronger, wrapping their hands together in warmth. The ground trembled. The stones shifted. A hidden platform rose from the riverbed, covered in ancient carvings. A way out. But as it rose, the sound of engines filled the air. They turned to see the enemy forces cresting the hills behind them. Armored trucks, hoverbikes, heavily armed soldiers. They had minutes at most. Daniel helped Arya onto the platform. "Whatever happens," he said, "we end it together." Arya nodded. The platform began to hum louder, the air around them growing thick with energy. The soldiers raised their weapons, The commander, a different one but just as cruel, shouted orders to fire. Bullets and plasma bolts tore through the air. Daniel shielded Arya with his body, feeling the heat of the blasts pass inches from his skin. The platform glowed brighter. The ground cracked. A doorway of light opened in the air above them. "Now!" Arya cried. They leapt together. The world twisted. For one endless moment there was nothing but light and sound. Then, silence. Daniel and Arya collapsed onto cool, soft ground. They looked up. They were no longer in the desert. They were in a lush green valley surrounded by ancient ruins and towering trees. Safe. For now. Arya sat up slowly, tears in her eyes. For the first time in what felt like forever, she was free. Truly free. She turned to Daniel, her voice shaking but clear. "I am not a broken thing," she said. "I am not their prisoner." Daniel smiled, bloodied and bruised but full of pride. "No," he said. "You are stronger than all of them." Arya stood up fully, her legs trembling but steady. She took her first real steps into her new life. And with Daniel beside her, she knew she would never be chained again. They would rebuild. They would fight. They would rise. Together. And the galaxy would never forget the day the broken warrior found her wings again.